Welcome to Learn English. Enjoy easy lessons, vocabulary, and grammar, and speak English with confidence. Subscribe and start your English journey today.
Usually when we talk about a mistake, there's this expectation of absolute precision.
Right, like it's a math problem or something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like engineering. You break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line on the black film, and the doctor just points a pen at it and says, there it is, right there.
It's binary, it's mathematically defined, a structural failure that you can point to and, measure.
Broken or not broken, it's a clean mistake. Like a typo on a resume where you spelled a word wrong, or a wrong turn on a GPS map that takes you 3 miles east instead of west.
And it's comforting in a very weird way, isn't it? We like our errors to be visible.
Oh, absolutely.
We want them to be easily categorized, isolated, and, quickly corrected with a simple formula.
Exactly. But then you step into the world of actual human growth. And, whether you're trying to master a new skill or trying to communicate in a completely alien environment under pressure, or even on a macro level, just trying to figure out what the hell to do with your life.
Right, the stakes get higher.
Yeah, and suddenly that pristine x-ray machine is completely broken. We're looking at a landscape of mistakes that is incredibly murky. I mean, the biggest, most catastrophic mistakes we make in our lives aren't typos at all.
No, they are the invisible traps. It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters.
Muddy waters, I like that.
Because you can be making a massive mistake for decades and, never see it on an x-ray.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the goal of our deep dive today isn't to learn how to be some flawless, perfect robot who never makes an error.
Which is impossible anyway.
Right. It's to understand that our entire cultural definition of a mistake is completely backward. We think a mistake is using the wrong verb tense in a sentence, or, taking the wrong entry-level job.
But it's so much deeper than that.
It is. The materials we are diving into today are pointing to something much deeper. Overcomplicating a simple task, waiting around for this mythical perfect time to start your life, chasing the wrong kind of public approval. Those are the actual fatal mistakes we need to avoid.
What's fascinating here is that whether you are learning a foreign language, trying to navigate a highly intimidating international airport, or building your career over the course of 30 years, the root of your mistakes almost always comes down to a fundamental disconnect between what is complete and what is actually useful.
Wow. Complete versus useful. I want to stick a pin in that phrase because it is everything. We sacrifice utility for the illusion of perfection.
We do it all the time.
All the time. And nothing illustrates this trap quite like a story we have from our sources today about a woman named Mia and her absolute horror story with a grammar book.
Ah, yes. The infamous 16 tenses incident. It perfectly encapsulates the paralysis of the curriculum.
It really does. So Mia is telling this story about cleaning out her room, and she unearths her old English grammar textbook from when she first started trying to learn the language.
Sounds innocent enough.
Right, but she opens it up and she sees this massive, sprawling chart dedicated to, wait for it, the 16 tenses of English.
Just hearing that number out loud is cognitively heavy. 16.
Right.
Imagine the working memory required to process 16 different conceptualizations of time.
She says she looked at it and almost cried. She stared at that page years ago, and her immediate thought was, I will never speak English.
And honestly, who can blame her?
Seriously. If someone told me I had to mentally juggle 16 different structural variations of time before I could order a cup of coffee without sounding stupid, I would quit on the spot.
And this is the mistake of overcomplication in its purest, most academic form. When you approach a new discipline, anything from coding to a new language to a martial art.
Usually looking at a textbook, right?
Exactly. You are often handed a curriculum designed by experts. And what do experts love to do? They love to catalog. Textbooks are designed to be encyclopedic.
Oh, that makes so much sense. They want to show off a little bit.
Well, they want to show you every possible variation, every obscure exception to the rule, every nuanced layer of a subject to prove how comprehensive the book is.
Right. They want the book to be complete.
Yes. But your brain, especially when it's attempting to acquire a functional skill that you need to use under the pressure of real-time reality, well, it does not operate like a reference encyclopedia.
No, it's just trying to survive the conversation.
Exactly. The human brain operates on pattern recognition and utility. When you force an encyclopedia into a brain that just wants a tool, you don't get fluency. You get total paralysis.
And the ultimate irony here is that Mia has been speaking English fluently for years now. She communicates perfectly well.
Right.
And when she actually stops to analyze how many of those 16 tenses she uses in her daily real-world conversations, it's not 16. It's not 12, it's 3.
3 tenses to successfully navigate the vast majority of human interaction. The ratio of what we are taught versus what we actually need is just staggering.
This completely blew my mind when I read it. Let's break down this paradigm shift because I think the underlying psychology here applies to so much more than just language learning.
It's a universal principle.
Yeah. So they break this functional fluency down into the now tense, the yesterday tense, and the tomorrow tense.
Notice what they did there. They stripped away the academic jargon. They aren't calling it the simple present indicative or whatever.
Oh, thank you.
They call it the now tense, and they define its function brilliantly, you know. It is the tense of identity.
Yes, the examples they give are so foundational. I drink coffee. I live in a small apartment. I work at a school. It's your routine, your habit.
It is literally the tense of who you are.
Exactly. When you meet someone at a party and they ask what you do, you don't need a complex conditional tense. You use the now tense. I teach, I study, I wake up at 7.
But the cognitive mistake learners make, and this is explicitly highlighted in the text, is this uncontrollable urge to over-engineer these incredibly simple statements.
Oh, yeah. The over-engineering is real.
A classic example is a learner saying, I am wake up at 7, instead of just, I wake up at 7.
I am wake up. We hear this all the time. But why do we do that? Why do we instinctively insert the am where it completely breaks the machinery of the sentence?
Well, it's because of the anxiety of completion.
The anxiety of completion.
Think about it from the learner's perspective. You have been taught that the verb to be is the absolute foundation of the language. It feels important. It feels structural.
Oh, I see where this is going.
So your brain, terrified of making a mistake by leaving something out, feels the need to inject this foundational piece everywhere. You want to sound more complete. You want to sound grammatically sophisticated.
Oh, wow. So they are overthinking the academic rule instead of trusting the simple underlying pattern.
Exactly.
They are prioritizing this vague internal sense of textbook correctness over the actual utility of just communicating the fact that they woke up.
Precisely. It's an ego defense. You would rather insert extra incorrect words to prove you studied the textbook than use a simple 3-word sentence that makes you feel like a beginner.
You are overcomplicating to protect your pride. That is wild.
It really is.
It's like you're trying to pack everything you know into one single sentence to prove you know it. Learning anything new is like packing for a trip.
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Right. The massive mistake we make is trying to pack our entire wardrobe, all 16 tenses, all the auxiliary verbs, all the jargon into our carry-on luggage because we are terrified we might need them.
You want to be prepared for every hypothetical climate.
Exactly. But you don't need the whole wardrobe. You just need a few versatile pieces that work in almost any weather.
That is an incredibly sharp analogy. You are dragging around 50 pounds of excess baggage for a weekend trip. You only need the versatile pieces.
Which brings us perfectly to their second versatile piece, the yesterday tense.
Simple past. But the way they reframe this is beautiful. They call it the tense of the storyteller.
I love that. When you say, I went to the store, or I bought fruit, I ate a big breakfast, you aren't just doing a sterile grammar exercise anymore. You are telling a human story.
And that shift in framing is vital. It moves you from, I am performing a test, to, I am sharing my life. It's connection.
Right. When you sit down with a friend, you ask, what did you do this weekend? You are inviting a narrative. You are connecting.
But here is where the prep is set, and man, it is a brutal one. The past tense is full of irregular verbs. You can't just slap an ed onto the end of everything.
Dreaded irregulars.
And we have another file in our stack that perfectly illustrates the madness of how this is taught. It's a transcript of a practice exercise, and it is just a relentless 6-minute barrage of 100 irregular verbs.
The sheer volume of that list is cognitively abusive.
It's a nightmare. You read through this thing and it's just chanting burst, 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 shrink, 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 shake, shake, shaken, bleed, bled, 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 fling, flang, flung, sling, slung, slung. Imagine being an absolute beginner, eager to tell a story about your weekend, and you are handed that document.
I've run away.
You are told you must memorize the difference between flung and slung before you are allowed to speak.
I would flung myself out a window. It's overwhelming to the point of absurdity. But Mia and Ryan synthesize this perfectly.
How so?
They point out that to avoid the mistake of overwhelm, you don't need to memorize hundreds of these bizarre, irregular verbs. You only need to master about 10 go-to verbs to tell 90% of your daily stories.
10 verbs. Go, eat, buy, make, take, see, get, have, come, drink.
That's it.
If you know went, ate, bought, and a few others, you are functionally fluent in daily storytelling. You can navigate almost any casual conversation.
And finally, the tomorrow tense. The simple future with will. This is for plans, dreams, spontaneous decisions. I will help you. I will try a new pizza place.
What is beautiful about the tomorrow tense is its underlying mechanism. Look at the phrase, I will help you. It is a spontaneous decision made in the moment.
Super simple.
It requires absolutely zero complex conjugation. It is pure, unadulterated utility.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, and how you approach learning and avoiding mistakes in your own life? I mean, if you're trying to learn Python coding, or you're trying to become a better public speaker, or you're picking up a new sport, what is the core lesson here?
The core lesson is that grammar books or coding manuals or public speaking textbooks want to be complete. But the act of actually speaking, coding, or presenting wants to be useful.
Complete versus useful. Again.
The biggest mistake you can make when acquiring any new skill is prioritizing textbook perfection over real-world utility. You do not need to memorize the entire topographical map of a city to walk out your front door and go to the corner store.
No, you just need to know the first 3 steps.
Exactly.
Complete versus useful. It changes everything. Now let's take this concept of real-world utility and see what happens when the pressure is dialed up to 10.
The stress test.
Because knowing the 3 steps is one thing, but executing them when you are terrified is another. Let's look at how preparing a simple, highly functional script helps you avoid freezing up in a high-stakes environment like navigating an intimidating foreign airport.
This is where the theory is actually tested.
Yeah.
We are moving from the safety of the classroom into the chaos of the real world.
Right. So we have this breakdown of a woman named Ella on her first day abroad. She arrives at this massive, chaotic U.S. airport, and she is admittedly terrified.
Very understandable.
But the way she navigates this airport is an absolute masterclass in avoiding mistakes through ruthless simplicity.
It is entirely unpretentious. Ella does not attempt to impress anyone with the 16 tenses. She strips her communication down to its barest bones.
Let's look at the check-in counter. This is a high-stress bottleneck. The agent weighs her bag and says, "It's overweight." Now think about this moment. This is a prime scenario where a learner could totally panic.
Absolutely. The brain just starts racing.
You might try to construct some complex apologetic paragraph like, "Oh, I'm so incredibly sorry, would have packed less had I known the specific weight restrictions of this particular aircraft."
And in trying to construct that complex sentence, they stutter, they freeze, and they fail to communicate the only thing that matters, which is how to fix the problem.
But Ella doesn't do that. Her script is simple. The agent tells her she needs to remove items. Ella just says, "Okay, I'll take something out. You can put it in your carry-on." Got it. Boom. Problem solved. The line moves forward.
And we see this exact same utility-driven approach at the security checkpoint.
Right.
They pull her bag aside, they pull out a bottle.
Scary moment.
Right, but they don't want a medical dissertation on her dietary supplements. She just says, "That's vitamins." They ask what they're for. She replies, "Just for daily health."
Just for daily health. 5 words, no complex jargon, just perfectly clear, highly functional data transfer.
But we have to address the climax of this airport journey, which is the immigration desk. This is the ultimate pressure test.
Oh, absolutely. The materials note that immigration is universally scary. You're standing there exhausted from a long flight. You are in front of an officer in a uniform with a badge who has the power to deny you entry.
There is a line of angry people behind you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is prime territory for your brain to completely shut off.
This raises an important question, though. Think about the last time you froze in a high-pressure situation. Why did your brain just shut down? Why do we freeze when the stakes are high?
Yeah, why do we?
Well, if we connect this to the cognitive mechanics outlined in the Speak Up Sessions methodology, we freeze because we attempt to invent complex sentences from scratch under immense cognitive pressure.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The brain just runs out of RAM. The Speak Up sessions focus heavily on this concept called shadowing practice, which is essentially repeating native sentences out loud over and over to build muscle memory.
A very effective technique.
And they explicitly state that the goal of this is to help you stop translating in your head.
Translating in your head is arguably one of the most complex cognitive tasks a human can perform.
Really?
Let's break down the neuroscience of what happens at that immigration desk if you try to translate. You are holding the concept in your native language, in your working memory. Your working memory only has about 4 to 7 slots of capacity.
Not a lot of room.
Then you are furiously searching your mental dictionary for the foreign equivalent. You are applying the grammar rules, trying to remember which of the 16 tenses fits. You are formatting the pronunciation.
That sounds exhausting.
And you are doing all of this while your amygdala, the feel center of your brain, is sounding an alarm because a person in a uniform is glaring at you. It is a recipe for a total system crash.
It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while someone is screaming at you. Of course you drop the cube.
Exactly.
But Ella bypasses this entire system crash. She avoids the mistake by having pre-prepared direct answers. The officer asks the purpose of her visit. She doesn't translate a paragraph. She fires off one word. Sightseeing. Duration. 2 weeks. Job. I'm a nurse.
She relied on a script.
Exactly. She wasn't trying to impress the immigration officer with a vast vocabulary. The mistake we all make in high pressure situations is that we try to sound smart instead of trying to sound clear.
And we need to interrogate that urge.
Yeah.
Sounding smart is an ego-driven desire. You want the officer to validate your intelligence.
Right.
Sounding clear is a utility-driven desire. You just want the officer to stamp your passport so you can go to your hotel.
I mean, put yourself in the officer's shoes. You've been checking passports for 8 hours. You don't want a poetic monologue about a traveler's lifelong dream to visit the Grand Canyon. You want the data. You want the script.
Precisely. And this reliance on standard, almost mundane daily sentences is heavily reinforced in another file we looked at, a practice session focused entirely on cleaning the house.
Oh, right, the chores.
At first glance, a list of household chores seems like the most boring, useless thing to study.
I have to admit, when I first read that transcript, I was rolling my eyes a bit. It's literally just line after line of, I sweep the floor, I use a dustpan, I take out the trash, I wipe the table, I scrub the sink, I sort the clothes, I load the machine.
So repetitive.
It felt so repetitive. I was like, who cares about the word for dustpan?
But that repetition is the architecture of fluency. The underlying logic here is profound. Why do you repeatedly say, I take out the trash? Because routine vocabulary anchors your brain.
Anchors it.
Yes. When you practice these mundane phrases until you don't have to consciously think about how to construct them, you build an automatic neural pathway. You are turning language from a conscious cognitive puzzle into an unconscious reflex.
You're building muscle memory for your mouth.
Exactly. And the benefit of this muscle memory isn't just that you can talk about chores. The real benefit is cognitive bandwidth.
Because you aren't using all your RAM.
Right. As we established, you have a finite amount of mental energy at any given moment. If you are spending 80% of your mental energy just trying to remember the vocabulary word for dustpan or carry-on bag, you only have 20% left to manage your anxiety.
And 20% is not enough.
It's not enough to read the room, pick up on social cues, and avoid larger contextual mistakes. By scripting and shadowing the absolute basics until they are reflexive, you protect yourself from cognitive overload.
Oh, man. I love this. It's exactly like learning to drive a manual transmission car. Do you remember when you first learned?
Vividly, it was terrifying.
Right. You're staring at the clutch pedal, you're looking down at the stick shift, you're trying to remember the friction point. It's totally overwhelming.
You stall the car constantly.
You make a million mistakes because 100% of your brain is focused on the mechanics inside the car. But if a dog runs out into the road, you're going to hit it because you have zero bandwidth left to look out the windshield.
But once the mechanics of shifting gears become muscle memory, once it becomes an unconscious script,
you can finally look at the road. You can navigate traffic. You can listen to the radio. Ella wasn't staring at the pedals at the immigration desk. She was looking at the road. She had her script.
A perfect parallel. Automate the simple things so your brain is free to handle the complex things.
Okay, so we've established some incredibly powerful mechanics here. Overcomplicating things is a huge mistake. And relying on working memory instead of prepared scripts is a huge mistake. But when we zoom out from our daily routines, from our grammar lessons and our airport interactions, the materials reveal a much more profound existential mistake we make with our lives overall. And that is the mistake of waiting.
This is where the deep dive takes a very serious turn. We are moving from tactical daily errors to the kind of mistakes that you look back on decades later with deep regret.
Yes. Let's dig into this narrative about a man named John. This story really got under my skin. John is 78 years old, and he's narrating this look back on his life.
It's a very candid reflection.
Very. He describes his youth, and honestly, it is uncomfortably relatable. He says he woke up late every day, he played games, he laughed a lot with his friends, but he learned nothing.
He was just coasting.
Completely. He didn't read, he didn't work on any skills, he didn't think about his future at all.
And crucially, he explicitly states the core issue. He says, I was wasting time, but I didn't see it. He was completely blind to his own existential mistake because it didn't feel like a mistake in the moment. It felt comfortable.
Right. Every day was exactly the same as the last. He operated under the assumption that he had all the time in the world. And then comes this pivotal turning point. His uncle comes to visit.
A catalyst.
And the uncle is described as a very quiet, serious man. John smiles at him, trying to bring that same easy, laughing energy. But the uncle doesn't smile back. He just looks dead into John's eyes and says 4 words, "Don't waste your time."
The brevity is what gives it power. Just that. Nothing more. No long talk. No big story.
The uncle stands up and literally just walks away.
Hmm.
But John says those 4 words lodged in his brain. They stayed in his head like a song on repeat.
It disrupted his entire pattern.
Yeah, at first he tried to ignore it, but slowly the words started to act like a corrosive acid on his comfortable worldview. He started looking at his life and realizing how many thousands of hours he had just thrown away. He felt sad, and for the first time, he actually wanted to change.
This raises a really important question that we need to unpack. Why did that specific intervention work?
That's what I was wondering.
As you noted, the uncle didn't give a grand lecture on the fleeting nature of mortality. He delivered a simple, blunt observation.
Yeah, I actually want to push back on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Because if we are being honest, don't waste your time is basically a cliche. It's the kind of thing you see printed on a cheap motivational poster or a bumper sticker.
Right. It's not a novel concept.
So why did that specific sentence from his uncle actually snap him out of a years-long stupor when he had almost certainly heard variations of it before?
Well, it wasn't the words themselves. It was the delivery and the sudden, violent disruption of his mental model. The text later provides the philosophical underpinning of this realization.
Okay, what is it?
John comes to this brutal realization that time is free, but it is also the most valuable thing. You can lose money and make it again, but you cannot get your time back. Once it is gone forever.
Man, that's heavy.
The cliche became a lived reality in that exact moment because his uncle acted as a mirror. The uncle didn't try to argue with him, he just held up a mirror to John's blindness. The ultimate mistake John was making was treating a finite, unrenewable resource as if it were infinite.
Treating time as infinite, that is so subtly dangerous because it doesn't feel like a mistake today. It only feels like a mistake 10 years from now.
Exactly.
And John points out that the primary way we justify this mistake is by waiting for the perfect time to change. He says, many people wait for the perfect time, but the perfect time does not come. The best time is now.
The perfect time is not a real thing. It is a psychological illusion.
An illusion.
Yes, it is a defense mechanism created by the ego to justify inaction. We tell ourselves we need the perfect business plan, the perfect amount of savings in the bank, the perfect emotional state, the 16 tenses of life fully mastered before we can safely take a step.
Wow, it's an ego defense. If I wait for the perfect time, I never actually have to start, which means I never actually have to face the vulnerability of being a beginner and potentially failing. I can just stay in my comfortable room playing games.
Exactly. The desire for a perfect start is just the mistake of overcomplication masquerading as wisdom.
So how do you break that? John found the antidote, and it wasn't some cinematic overnight transformation. He didn't burn his life down and start a massive company the next day.
No, he took incredibly small, messy, imperfect steps.
He created a script for his life, much like Ella's script for navigating the airport.
Oh.
He stripped away the complexity.
What did his script look like?
He literally wrote 3 things on a piece of paper and pinned it to his wall. Wake up early, read every day, write 1 idea. That was it. That was his entire strategic plan for fixing his life.
3 simple actions. He forced himself out of the passive, yesterday tense of his regrets, and into the active, now tense of his new identity.
And the sensory details of his struggle are so grounded, it wasn't magic. Waking up early was physically painful. He says his bed felt warm and soft, and the pull to stay asleep was huge.
We've all been there.
Right. But he forced himself to stand up and open the window. He noticed the morning air felt clean and cold, and his mind was finally quiet. Reading was incredibly boring at first because his brain was used to constant stimulation. So he started with just 1 page a day of very easy books.
He didn't demand perfection. He demanded utility. 1 page is useful. 0 pages, while waiting for the perfect moment to read a whole novel, is useless.
And writing was the hardest part. His hand was slow, his vocabulary was simple, but he forced himself to write 1 small idea each day.
And what happens when you commit to these tiny, imperfect actions?
The compound interest is wild. He says, that small habit helped me understand myself. It helped me see what I wanted from life. He started to grow. His days were no longer an amorphous blur of wasted time. He found actual direction.
By taking immediate action, regardless of how clumsy it was, he bypassed the mistake of waiting. He traded the paralyzing, ego-driven desire for a perfect start, for the messy, highly useful reality of actually doing something. He generated momentum out of nothing.
And what's fascinating is how this internal shift forced a change in his external environment.
Yeah.
He naturally started watching less TV. He put his phone away. And most importantly, he says he stayed away from people who only talked but never worked. People who laughed all day but did nothing.
He curated his life.
Yeah, he instituted a ruthless new rule for his life. If something is not useful, I will not do it.
There is that word again, useful. He completely reoriented his entire existence away from empty entertainment and perfectionism and aligned it with utility.
But this is where the deep dive takes its final, and I think most important turn. Because as John started to grow, as he stopped wasting time and started building a better life, he actually stepped into a new arena.
A new level brings new challenges.
Exactly. And waiting for him in that arena was a totally different kind of mistake.
Mm.
And this brings us to our final set of materials. An incredibly dense philosophical lecture on the hidden success trap. Because once you start achieving things, you run into a danger that is arguably even more catastrophic than wasting your time.
And that is the danger of wasting your character.
Selling your self-respect for cheap recognition. This part of the material was heavy. It argues that real success doesn't come from making everyone around you happy. It comes from staying ruthlessly true to your core values.
It's a hard lesson to learn.
It is. And the lecture breaks down several very specific psychological traps we fall into when we start gaining traction in life. The first one is the trap of approval versus feedback.
This is a critical distinction that most people never learn to make. The text outlines the profound mistake of giving other people the remote control to your emotions.
Remote control, yeah.
When your sense of worth depends on approval, you are on a constant roller coaster. Your confidence surges when people clap for you, and it completely evaporates the second they ignore you or criticize you.
The lecture says, you are no longer living freely. You are living according to the reactions of others. You stop asking yourself, is this the right thing to do? Is this honest? And you start asking, will they like this? Will they accept me if I do this?
And the fundamental difference the speaker highlights is the mechanism of each concept. Feedback helps you improve. Approval only makes you feel accepted for a short time.
Feedback is data.
Right. It is neutral. A wise person takes feedback, analyzes it for utility, and adjusts their methods, but they do not change their fundamental identity just because someone is unhappy with them. Chasing approval means changing who you are to fit the container someone else built for you.
It makes me think of building a house. Chasing approval is like building a massive, beautiful mansion on rented land. You might have this incredible structure of success. People are praising you. You have a great job title. But the landlord is the public opinion. And they can evict your self-esteem at any given moment because you don't actually own the ground you're standing on.
If we connect this to the psychological reality described in the text, the internal cost of that eviction is severe. The lecturer says, hiding yourself for too long creates sadness inside. You may be surrounded by people and still feel alone because nobody knows the real you.
That is just awful.
Think about the tragedy of that mistake, to spend your whole life building a successful facade that is so disconnected from your actual values that you feel entirely isolated within your own success. The crowd is cheering for a ghost.
Man, the crowd is cheering for a ghost. That is chilling. And the material gives some very sharp, uncomfortable examples of how this plays out in the real world, specifically in the workplace. Let's talk about the trap of the powerful person.
Okay, let's get into it.
There's this anecdote about two different workers. The first worker makes it his mission to always praise the boss. He agrees with every single decision. Even when he mathematically knows it's a terrible business move, he laughs at every bad joke. He tries to physically stay close to power.
He is chasing short-term recognition by flattening his own intellect. He believes his value comes entirely from his proximity to the boss's ego, so he willingly trades his honesty for a crumb of attention.
Right. But the second worker operates differently. He is respectful, but he is honest. He shares his true opinion, even if it causes friction. Now, in the short term, the flatterer gets all the attention. The boss loves him.
Naturally.
But eventually, a crisis hits. And people stop trusting the flatterer because they realize his words have no structural integrity. They aren't real. The honest worker, who weathered the discomfort of disagreement, ends up earning the long-term respect.
There is another powerful anecdote in that same section about an employee who admired his manager so deeply that he actually stopped trusting his own brain.
Yes. This one hurt to read. The company was about to make a massive strategic mistake. The employee saw the flaw in the plan early on, but he swallowed his tongue. He stayed totally silent.
He was too afraid to disrupt the harmony.
Or disagree with the person in charge. Later, when the mistake blows up and causes a huge financial problem, the manager pulls him into the office and asks, "Why didn't you speak up? You had the data." And the employee says, "I thought you knew better than me."
And what was the manager's response?
"I hired you to think, not only to agree."
That line is absolutely devastating. I hired you to think, not only to agree. It perfectly encapsulates the ultimate failure of people-pleasing. We think we're doing the right thing by being agreeable.
We think we're being good team players.
But when you strip away your own critical thinking out of a misplaced sense of respect or fear, you actually become completely useless to the people you are trying to impress. You cease to be a contributor. You become a mere echo.
It's the mistake of believing that respect means making yourself small. The material talks about holding the tension between two concepts, humility and dignity. Humility says, I don't know everything and I can learn from you. But dignity says, I have inherent value and I will not lose myself or lie just to make you comfortable.
You have to have both.
Exactly. Without humility, you become an arrogant narcissist. But without dignity, you become a weak echo.
Which leads directly into the final trap they discuss. Recognition versus reputation. The text makes a brilliant, piercing distinction here. Recognition is what people give you in a passing moment. It is applause.
Right, it's fleeting.
Reputation is what people believe about you in the quiet moments after watching your behavior over a long period of time. It is trust.
They illustrate this with the loud business owner versus the quiet business owner. The text compares a guy who spends a fortune showing off how successful he is. He drives the flashy car. He makes massive bombastic promises to clients that he knows he can't actually keep, all to get the immediate sale and the recognition.
The classic showman.
Then you have the second owner. He speaks less. He doesn't drive a flashy car, but he gives brutally honest service, and when a problem arises, he actually solves it instead of making excuses. The first guy is addicted to the spotlight. The second guy is obsessed with being reliable.
The first owner is attempting to build success entirely on the appearance of success. It's an illusion. But as the text states so clearly, a good reputation is not created by one impressive moment. It is created by many small, honest moments.
It's built when you keep your word.
Yes, when you choose what is right, even when nobody will praise you for it.
And eventually, inevitably, the loud owner's business collapses because his promises were empty. The foundation rots. Meanwhile, the quiet owner's business steadily grows because people trust him. Trust takes you so much further than praise.
Trust is the ultimate utility in human relationships. Just as the three simple verb tenses are the ultimate utility in language, and the daily scripts are the ultimate utility in navigating a chaotic world.
Okay, let's pull all the way back and tie this entire journey together. Because as we've unpacked this seemingly random stack of materials, a massive unified theory of avoiding mistakes has emerged.
Synthesizing this material reveals an incredibly clear, undeniable pattern. Think about the disparate examples we've explored today.
Let's run through them.
Whether you are a language learner forcing yourself to memorize 16 tenses because you are desperate to sound academically brilliant instead of just communicating.
Or you're a traveler freezing at the immigration desk because you're terrified of sounding simple, and your brain crashes under the cognitive load.
Or you are a young person waiting around for the mythical perfect time to start your life because you are using perfectionism as a shield to avoid the messy, imperfect process of taking small, awkward steps.
Or you're an employee flattering a toxic boss and burying your true opinions just to get a quick pat on the head and a momentary hit of dopamine from their approval.
Every single one of these catastrophic mistakes is rooted in the exact same fundamental error. You are performing for an audience rather than improving yourself.
You're putting on a show.
You are prioritizing the appearance of perfection, the appearance of completion, the appearance of success over the quiet, unglamorous, messy reality of utility and honesty.
Wow. We spend so much of our finite energy trying to avoid making mistakes in front of other people. We obsess over getting the irregular verbs exactly right, using the perfect vocabulary, crafting the flawless resume, chasing the applause of the crowd.
We just want to look good.
We want the X-ray of our lives to look perfectly clean, with no jagged white lines.
But the insights from today suggest that the only truly fatal mistake you can make is the one made out of a desire to look perfect to the crowd, while secretly sacrificing your own time, your own functional utility, and your own deep self-respect.
That is hard.
The illusion of the binary mistake, the broken bone on the X-ray, is just that. An illusion. Real growth is always found in the muddy waters of practical, honest, imperfect effort.
So to wrap this up for you, if you want to avoid the invisible mistakes that actually derail a life, you have to embrace the messy reality. You need to consciously choose utility over perfection. Don't try to memorize the whole dictionary. Learn the 3 basic tenses you need to tell your human story.
Keep it simple.
Prepare your simple, functional scripts for daily life so you don't freeze under the weight of cognitive overload. Take immediate small actions today. Read one single page, write one clumsy idea rather than waiting for a perfect tomorrow that does not exist.
There now.
And above all, ruthlessly protect your finite time and your internal self-respect from the cheap, empty demand for public recognition.
A powerful takeaway.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative thought to mull over today. We've spent this entire time talking about how to avoid these massive traps of performance and overcomplication. But based on everything we've unpacked, well, maybe the only fatal mistake you can make is the one made out of a desperate desire to look perfect to the crowd rather than being honest with yourself.
That's the real trap.
So if you are going to make a mistake today, and let's be real, you absolutely will, make sure it's an honest one. Make it a mistake of action, a mistake of trying, a mistake of sheer utility. Make a beautiful, messy mistake.
I could agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the rules, keep looking for what's actually useful, and above all, stay curious. Until next time.